Welcome to Beyond the Clinic, the podcast for health professionals ready to transform their expertise into innovative income streams that extend beyond the traditional clinic model. I'm Sarah Armand-Bushell. I'm a registered dietitian and certified business coach and proud owner of 2 successful online businesses. I understand the leap from the security of a regular salary can feel intimidating because I've been there too. But it doesn't have to be scary, and you do not have to do this alone. Here you'll learn tangible strategies to accelerate your business growth. So if you're dreaming of using your expertise to create impact and a life of freedom, then you're in the right place. Most dietitians have no idea how much their old NHS habits are keeping them stuck in their private practice and affecting their ability to get clients. And the last episode that I did on this was one of my most downloaded ever, which tells me that this is something that so many dietitians like you are struggling with. There are so many habits, beliefs, and ways of thinking that we develop in the NHS that makes us excellent clinicians. But those very same habits can make building a successful private practice so much harder than it needs to be. They keep us from fully putting ourselves out there in the online world, from charging properly and doing the things that you need to do in order to actually grow a client base. And the tricky part is most of the time you don't even realize they're there because they've become part of how you operate and part of your professional identity. I know this because I've had to unlearn so many of these habits over the years, and I see them show up time and time again with the dietitians that I work with inside Accelerate. The good news is, once you spot these habits, you can start changing them, and often that's when business starts feeling easier. As I said back in February, I recorded an episode called 4 NHS Habits That Are Quietly Killing Your Business. It was episode number 94. I'll link to it in the show notes. And it ended up becoming one of the most downloaded episodes that I've ever done. My DMs were full of messages from dietitians saying things like, my goodness, I do all of these. And well, this explains why I've been so stuck. So I knew there was so much more to say on this. And in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 4 more NHS habits that could be secretly costing you clients and slowing down your business growth. And my guess is at least one of them is something that you're doing right now without even realizing. So if you've been feeling like you're doing all the right things to get clients and grow your private practice, but you're still not seeing the results you want, this episode is for you. Now, the first NHS trained habit that could be costing you clients every month is, well, it's a biggie, and it's actually not following up with potential clients. Now, if you think about it, in the NHS, if a patient doesn't attend an appointment, you might send a DNA letter and you just move on. You don't chase them. You don't check in to ask if they still want support. Following up can feel like you're hassling someone, really. You're trained to respect patient autonomy, and in that NHS setting, it makes total sense. People need to be in charge of their own healthcare. You would never dream of ringing a patient and saying, you missed your appointment that I booked for you. Shall I rebook you? And then following up again if they didn't respond to that one. After all, most NHS dietitians are far too busy for that. But in business, it's a completely different story. And that's why this habit ends up costing dietitians a huge number of clients. In the marketing world, it's often cited that 80% of sales happen in the follow-up. The reality is most people don't book straight away. The people who inquire but don't book immediately are not saying no, they're saying not yet. They're usually still deciding, they're mulling over the pros and cons, or they need more information. Perhaps you didn't fully answer their question, or they haven't yet asked what's truly holding them back. Or they're just busy and they've been meaning to come back to it, or they simply forgot because life got in the way. So if you don't follow up, you're leaving clients and income on the table every single month. I actually spoke about this in episode 108, where one of my clients went from a really quiet month to signing 5 new clients in the space of a few days. And what made the difference wasn't a big marketing push or a new campaign or a fancy strategy. It was just going back to the people who'd already shown an interest in working with him and following up with them properly. And it was just a short check in to reopen the conversation, remind them of their original inquiry, and see if they needed any questions cleared up. After doing this follow up, he got 5 new clients signed. It's really interesting how, when we move into business, that instinct suddenly gets labeled as pushy when actually it's just care. Because if someone has taken the time to inquire about working with you, they're already telling you something. They need your help. And it's your job to make sure that they've got the information that they need, that their questions are answered, and that they feel supported in making a decision. So the fix here is actually really simple. Make sure you have a follow-up system. So after a discovery call, if someone says, I need to think about it, don't leave them to get back to you. Say, no problem, I'll check in with you again on Monday. And then a few days later, follow up, and again if needed. Set a reminder in your phone or your client management system for every single person who doesn't say yes immediately, so that you don't lose clients simply because there was no follow-up in place. Because if you're not following up with every client who tells you they need to think about it on a discovery call, there's a very high chance that you're losing clients every single month without even realizing it. Now, habit number 2 I see all the time is treating your business like a side project or a hobby. In other words, not really running your business like a business and not having a proper structure behind what you're doing. And the reason this happens is, well, it's really understandable. Because in the NHS, you're not really responsible for creating a structure for yourself. You've got a rota telling you when you're working. You've got clinics booked in your diary with a start and an end time. You've also got things like targets, and some trusts even have KPIs that are already set for you. So you don't actually have to decide what success looks like in advance. But in business, again, it's a very different story. Suddenly, you've got to create your own structure. You have to define your own targets, including your revenue targets. And this is where a lot of dietitians get a bit stuck. What usually happens is you work when you can. So instead of having proper focused business time, maybe you squeeze in a few tasks into the gap between school runs or your NHS days, or maybe you end up thinking about your business and different ideas in your head while you're off doing other things, but never actually focus on it properly or execute anything fully. And that's why it can sometimes feel like you're working all the time, but you're not actually getting anywhere. Now, it's important you recognize that this isn't a discipline problem. It's not that you're lazy or you're not motivated enough. It's just that you've never really been taught how to create your own structure or how to define your own targets or revenue goals. You've been trained to work inside a system rather than build a system for yourself. And that shift is actually one of the biggest and hardest changes when you move into business. I know firsthand how hard it is to adjust into this mindset. When I first started my private practice, I was juggling building my children's nutrition business alongside my NHS work. And in the beginning, it was very much something that I squeezed in whenever I could. Those 5 a.m. starts were real. There was no real structure behind it. But then I made an intentional decision to start treating it like a real business and not a side project. So I started time blocking specific hours for business tasks, not seeing clients, the building of the business, and deciding in advance what it was that I was actually going to focus on and when. I also started setting really clear revenue targets for the month, the quarter, and the year. So I actually knew what I was working towards. And I finally stopped feeling like I was constantly trying to play catch up, and I actually started seeing my income grow with a lot more predictability. So my advice to you would be treat your business like a job you've been hired to do. So start setting yourself concrete hours, even if it's just 5 hours a week, and decide exactly what business tasks you're going to get done in those hours, that's not client-related time, and it is not client-related admin. It's your business development time. So put business development time in your diary and protect it like the way you'd protect a clinic slot. Because remember, if you treat your business like a hobby and squeeze things in when you can, it's going to pay you like one. So get intentional with your time and get intentional with what you actually want your business to be able to achieve. Okay, habit number 3 is something that I think you'll definitely relate to. It's something most dietitians struggle with, actually, and it was definitely something I struggled with, particularly when I was starting in business. It's this idea of needing everything to be perfect before you can actually hit publish or post. Maybe you hold back from posting on social media because you're worried you might say something that's slightly inaccurate, or that someone from your old NHS department might see it and judge you. That fear of, what if I say the wrong thing? Or what if someone reports me is really, really common. And I can 100% relate to this. In the early days of starting my nutrition business, there was a period of time when my mind was running wild with fear about being visible online. And as ridiculous as it sounds now, at the time it felt very, very real. I genuinely thought that if I posted something wrong or said something slightly outdated, I would get reported. I remember thinking there would be another dietitian watching my content, sitting, waiting, ready to pick it apart. I even worried I was going to get reported to the HCPC and receive a letter saying I wasn't fit to practice. So, yep, I was full on spiraling into the worst case scenarios over a simple Instagram post. And you know what? Because of that, I held myself back for a very long time. Didn't want to go live. I didn't want to talk about my offers properly. I didn't want to put anything out there unless I was 100% certain that it was perfect. Because somewhere along the line, I had linked visibility with risk. And the interesting thing is, that fear wasn't really about social media. It was my NHS conditioning. It was that deep conditioning of, don't get it wrong, be clinically precise, and don't say anything unless you are absolutely 100% sure. Now, if you think about it, in clinical practice, we're trained to be careful, we're trained to be precise because we're working with real people, with real conditions, and of course that comes with real risks. So you learn to be cautious, you learn to be evidence-based, and be very, very sure before you say anything out loud. And that is perfect. But what happens over time is that careful, safety-led mindset starts slowing you down when it comes to business. So instead of just openly sharing your nutritional advice and your opinions and your views, your brain starts going to, is this 100% up to date? Have I missed some new research on this? Could someone interpret this the wrong way? You're also then thinking about an old colleague or a very senior dietitian, perhaps, who might be watching and calling you out. And the problem is, this can result in you massively holding back in your content. And people don't build trust with overly cautious, generic, watered down content. They connect with trust, and they connect with someone who actually sounds like they believe what they're saying. And it doesn't just show up in clinical content either. You'll see it in other areas of your business too, like spending weeks or even months perfecting your website before setting it live, for instance. So, how do you actually break out of this habit? Well, first and foremost, remind yourself really consciously that you are a regulated healthcare professional with experience and you know what you're talking about. That doesn't go away just because you're saying it online and not in the NHS. Secondly, I'd recommend separating clinical work from business work in your mind because they're not held to the same standard, even though it can feel like they are. Give yourself permission to be imperfect in your business work. Done is better than perfect. And when it comes to things like your website and your social media, your first offer, your first email sequence, you know what? Done is better than perfect there too. I want you to launch it. I want you to learn from it, and I want you to improve it next time. Practically, one of the most powerful things you can do is start setting real deadlines for everything you create in your business. And then when that deadline arrives, you don't make excuses. You just get it out there into the world. And even if it feels like it could be better, even if there's still a few tweaks you'd make if you had more time, just get the blooming thing out there. Now, last but not least, habit number 4. And this is one that catches so many of us out because on the surface, it looks like we're doing everything right. So, you might be posting consistently and sharing super valuable, super useful information, but nobody's really inquiring or buying. And the reason is often because you're essentially documenting information instead of marketing your services. Because in the NHS, that's what you've spent years doing. You're trained to educate, to explain, and to communicate clearly, accurately, and professionally. In the NHS, you're writing clinical notes, you're writing care plans, discharge summaries, and everything is designed to inform and communicate facts. But in business, as much as it's great to give nutritional advice, if that's all you're doing, you end up with posts that are genuinely helpful, but they don't create connection. They don't create desire, and they don't create a clear next step for someone to take. So people might read your content, they might learn something from it, even save it, but they never actually think, I want to work with this person. Remember, people don't buy from the most qualified person. They buy from the person they feel most connected to. And connection comes from stories, personality, opinions, vulnerability, not from perfectly polished tips. The data from my content proves this too. My posts around my personal stories from building my nutrition business consistently outperform my purely educational content by 5 times. In the NHS, you're also used to writing for other healthcare professionals and not for the person actually needing the care. So sometimes it can be hard to switch into writing in a way that actually connects with the person that you're trying to help. I guess the thing you've got to remember is the person reading your content isn't another clinician analysing the accuracy of your nutritional guidance. It's someone scrolling on Instagram at 9 p.m, probably whilst watching something on Netflix, feeling frustrated with their problem, wondering if they should finally do something about it and if you're the person that can help them. And that is a completely different context. So here's what I want you to do. For every piece of content you create, ask yourself 2 simple questions. First, would this sound like something I'd say to a friend who's struggling with the same thing that my client is dealing with? If the answer is no, then it probably needs softening or simplifying or sounding more like you. And secondly, is there a clear reason for someone to take action after they've read this? Because ideally, you want every piece of content to have some kind of call to action, an invitation, or a next step. Otherwise, it's just information. And if you're just giving free information with no pathway to buy, you honestly don't have a business. So the biggest takeaway from this episode is these habits aren't flaws in you. They're simply NHS trained ways of working that made you a brilliant clinician, but they're likely shaping how you show up in business and potentially losing you clients without you even realizing it. So if you've recognized yourself in any one of these habits today, that's good, because you can't change what you don't see. But once you do see it, you can start to act differently. You can start following up instead of losing inquiries. You start intentionally creating structure in your days instead of squeezing your business into the gaps. You start pressing publish, even if something isn't yet perfect. And you start posting content that actually connects with your dream clients, not just educates them. Now, if you're thinking, I can see those habits in myself, but I don't really know how to change them, well, this is exactly the kind of work we do inside Accelerate. Because Accelerate isn't just about giving you practical strategies for getting clients, it's also about helping you actually build the confidence to show up, to step into your role as a business owner and start making decisions from that identity instead of your NHS trained one. The doors to Accelerate are currently open, but they're closing this Thursday, and then I'm heading away for 2 weeks. At the moment, you can join on the Silver tier, which is our most accessible, low-cost entry point into the program, or you can apply for a spot on Gold. Now, I know there's lots of business coaches out there who can show you how to get clients, but as a dietitian and business coach, I go that one level deeper because I truly understand the mindset that you have that's holding you back and the very unique challenges that come with moving from the NHS into private practice. I've been where you are. I've had the same fears and the same doubts. And I've also built a multi-six-figure business on the other side of that. And now I want to show you how to do the same thing. To join Accelerate Silver before the doors close or apply for a gold spot, follow the link in the show notes of this episode. Bye for now. That's it for another week. Thank you so much for joining me as we explore the abundance of strategies to help you recapture that feeling of possibility and excitement as you drive your business forwards and beyond the clinic room. If you found today's episode inspirational, then don't forget to like and subscribe to the show to stay in the loop for more valuable advice that I'm going to be sharing each week. If you want to be the first to hear about new episode releases, news and ways that I can support your business growth, then please don't forget to check out the links in the show notes, and you can also connect with me from there. Don't keep me a secret. I would be delighted if you left a review and shared this podcast with your colleagues. Until next time, bye for now.